The night it happened didn't feel extraordinary at first. It slipped into my life quietly, the way rain begins, not with thunder, not with warning, but with a soft, unexpected shift in the air. I had told myself it was just another walk home after a long shift. Just another evening where I carried too much weight in my arms and even more in my chest. But the moment I heard footsteps behind me and a voice cutting through the misty rain, something inside me stirred, something I hadn't felt in far too long. It was the kind of moment that doesn't announce itself, yet somehow you know, even before you turn around, that nothing afterward will feel quite the same. I glanced back and saw him, the quiet man I had passed countless times in the building. We never exchanged more than polite nods or faint smiles in the elevator. He had always carried this gentle calm about him, the kind that made his presence noticeable without him ever trying to be. That evening, with the streetlight catching the rain on his shoulders, he looked almost unreal, as though crafted from some softer part of the night. He asked if I needed help with the bags. I told him I was fine, even though the strain in my hands said otherwise. But he didn't move. He stood there steady, unwavering, as if simply waiting for me to stop pretending I didn't need anyone. When he spoke again, his voice was low, patient, and the rain around us seemed to hush as if listening. I let him take half the bags, and the relief surprised me. Not just the physical lightness, but the quiet shift somewhere deeper and easing I didn't know I had been craving. We walked side by side through the rain, our steps syncing naturally, like two people who had walked together many times before, instead of strangers sharing a small, unplanned moment. For the first time in years, it felt strange. In the gentlest way, to have someone walking with me instead of watching my own shadow stretch in front of me. When we reached the building, I thought he would set the bags down and leave with a polite nod the way he always had. Instead, he followed me up the stairs, saying softly that there was no point in helping only halfway. His tone was careful but firm, and I didn't argue. I didn't want to. Inside, the warmth of my apartment wrapped around us, carrying the faint scent of a candle I had burned earlier. He stepped in quietly, his presence somehow fitting into the space as though he had been there before. As he placed the bags on the counter, I watched the way his hands moved steady, strong, marked with faint scars that hinted at years of endurance. When I whispered, "Thank you," my voice trembled more than I intended. He looked at me then, really looked, and something in his eyes made my breath pause for a moment. It wasn't simple politeness. It was something deeper, heavier, yet impossibly gentle. The air between us shifted, subtle but undeniable. Paragraph 5, silence settled around us like a soft blanket, warmed by the steady rain tapping the windows. I felt unusually aware of how close he stood, how the warmth of him seemed to reshape the room. Trying to break the tension, I tried a small laugh and joked that I owed him one. His lips curved, but his gaze didn't drift away. He told me I didn't owe him anything. And then, after a brief pause, his voice dropped in a way that made the air tighten around us. He said he had something to tell me. The words froze me, not out of fear, but with an odd jolt of anticipation, as though part of me had been waiting for him to speak with this kind of honesty. The rain thickened outside, drumming harder, matching the thrum building quietly in my chest. I leaned back against the counter and told him to tell me. He stepped closer, not imposing, just bridging a space that suddenly felt too charged to ignore. I could smell the faint trace of rain on his jacket, feel the warmth radiating off him. When he spoke again, his tone was softer than the rain, yet it carried a depth that seemed to reach into the parts of me I kept hidden. He told me he had noticed me, not in a way meant to unsettle, but with a quiet understanding of how I moved through my days alone. How I carried everything, even when I was exhausted. His words slipped beneath my defenses, peeling back layers I thought I had hidden well. I didn't know whether to step back or step closer. I tried to deflect with humor or distance, but he wasn't judging me. There was only compassion in his voice, real, unguarded compassion that made it hard to look away. He said that carrying everything alone leaves marks, whether we admit it or not, and that he had seen those marks on me. Something inside me wavered, trembling under the weight of being so unexpectedly seen. When I whispered that I thought he was just being kind, he gave a faint smile with a vulnerability I hadn't noticed before. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It pulsed with something real, something unspoken but deeply felt. My chest tightened with a strange mixture of hope and fear, an ache I didn't know how to hold. He told me he didn't want to overwhelm me, but he couldn't keep pretending anymore. He cared, more than the polite greetings we exchanged, more than the accidental glimpses in the hallway. His confession struck deeper than I expected, landing somewhere raw and fragile inside me. I didn't know how to respond. My voice felt like it didn't belong to me, small and unsteady, as I whispered that I didn't know what to say. He stepped back slightly, giving me space without withdrawing the warmth of his presence. He told me I didn't have to say anything, that he simply wanted me to know I wasn't invisible. That he saw me. The words cracked something open inside me, not with pain but with release. It had been so long since anyone had spoken to me with that kind of sincerity. The kettle's whistle cut through the tension like a sharp breath. I hurried to turn it off, my hands trembling with emotions too new, too vulnerable. When I turned back, he was watching me with that same patient warmth, as though he had all the time in the world. I offered him tea, mostly to ground myself, and he accepted with a faint smile. As I poured the water, steam drifted between us, delicate and ghostly, like a bridge connecting two people who weren't sure how close they were allowed to stand. When I handed him the cup, our fingers brushed briefly, lightly, but enough to send a quiet spark through me. It wasn't dramatic, but it was real. Real enough to unsettle me in the softest way. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the rain filling the silence with its rhythmic reassurance. He didn't press me for answers. He didn't try to shape the moment into anything it wasn't. He simply sat with me. That alone felt like more than I had received in years. As the tea cooled between my hands, something inside me softened, reshaping itself around the possibility of being seen, truly seen, and still accepted. When I finally found my voice again, it came out quiet, shaky. I told him he had caught me off guard. He smiled, telling me he knew that he hadn't meant to, but he couldn't hold his feelings in any longer. His honesty was disarming, unbearably gentle. I didn't know where this would lead, but the warmth between us was undeniable, and the night around us felt like it was waiting for something.